So, you know Primal for the PS2 from 2003? Well, this is a very interesting game to say the least. It's a very ambitious title, but it also lacks a little something. So, let's just start with the best part of it, which is the story. The plot starts off with our main hero Jen at her boyfriend's concert, and when both of them decide that it's time to head home, Louis, her boyfriend, gets kidnapped by this creepy monster, and while this happens, Jen gets injured and bleeds out. Well, it wouldn't be very interesting if she dies during the very first cutscene, so she actually falls into a coma, you know? Coma by Ace Aura. Anyways, that's all set up in the first cutscene, which is awesome because most people would leave that to be the plot twist at the end, but here it's actually a part of the story and a small part of the gameplay as well. Anyways, while she's in coma, we get to meet our sidekick Scree. He's basically the guy that can squeeze anywhere and can climb anything, but we'll come back to this later. So he does his magic and wakes up our hero from her coma, or just wakes her spirit. After that, Scree gives Jen these special gloves and tells her that she's very special. And later we find out that she's basically a half human, half superhero, and now with her newfound powers, both Jen and Scree have to restore balance to the 4 realms. So now if that sounded confusing, well, it's really not. I just suck at explaining things, but as a whole the story is very good. It's very interesting. And the whole story, as I mentioned, has 4 realms. The realm of the Fairy, the realm of the Undying, or just the fishies, the realm of the Wraith, or just the vampires, and the realm of the Jinn, or just, well, the Jinn. And each of these 4 realms comes with their own story and a deep lore to go along with the main story. So, are you still with me? Now, from these realms, I would say that the second realm, the water one, it just really slowed things down, and it was the least interesting one. It nearly killed the whole pace of the game for me. Also, the voice acting is freaking awesome. Well, most of the time, maybe like 90% of the time. That comes with the fact that they actually recorded the voiceovers in the same booth and the actors can easily bounce off of each other. Although it's a common practice nowadays, back in the 2000s this was pretty revolutionary because nobody did that. Everyone was in a separate booth, but I'm just getting distracted now. So let's talk a little bit about the visuals. The visuals look pretty good, to be honest. Well, maybe not nowadays, but for a PS2 game, I think they look as good as they can be. Some of the environments might look a little bit empty sometimes, but that was probably because of the limitations of the console. Overall, all I want to say is that the visuals look pretty good. That's what I'm trying to say. And so far, you might think, this game is awesome and I should buy it. Well, the disappointment begins with the gameplay. Oh my god, the gameplay. The gameplay is so bad. So stiff. I can't believe how sluggish it is. Even running in this game is so slow. And why does it try to be so realistic? The animations are really good, don't get me wrong on that, but the gameplay itself, it's so bad. It kind of feels like they took the tank controls from Tomb Raider 1 from the PS1 and made it into a beat 'em up. You can't even jump. Everything feels so restricting. Yet again, the story is about this supernatural human being. Why? Why did they decide to make the movement in a game about a superhuman so realistic, so restricting? I don't get it. And it doesn't end there. The fighting system, although it has potential, it's not that good. How it works is when you approach an enemy and when you start a fight, you get locked to the enemy. Okay, so far so good. All of your strikes are performed by pressing the L2 and R2 buttons. You can chain combos together by either tapping or holding the attack buttons, and each of the buttons corresponds with its own side. For example, L2 is for left strikes and R2 is for right strikes. And you can combine both L2 and R2 for a more devastating blow. This sounds good on paper, but the execution itself, it's so bad. Well, it's pretty bad. And you do this all the time. In every turn you take, there's like 5 guys waiting to attack you. Maybe not in the first stages, but in the later levels, it just gets repetitive and annoying. And don't worry, if you get bored of fighting the enemies, you can just run past them. They don't even care. Anyways, when you get used to the fighting system, it's not that hard. The problem is that it's boring, and hearing the same music every time you encounter an enemy doesn't help at all. The thing that saves the combat is that you have 4 forms. Well, 5 forms if you count the human form. Every single form has its own unique moveset, which is awesome! It helps the gameplay just enough to stay interesting, but not enough to be fun. And the game is very, very long, so that becomes a big issue. Another problem from the forms themselves, it might seem like a small thing, but every time you change a form, the transformation takes like a minute. At first it's no problem, it looks pretty good, but later in the game, when you have to change forms every 5 minutes, you have to watch this cutscene over and over and over every single time. You can't even skip it. It gets really annoying. You know another annoying thing? It's the way that the game doesn't give you an indication on what's interactable and what's not. For example, at first I thought that you can climb any surface because Scree in particular has the ability to climb anything.
I can climb up any stonework surface. Now that's something that might be useful to us, don't you think?
But nope, you can climb only on some walls, and some of them don't even lead anywhere. It feels like they just chose some random walls and combine them with the walls that you actually need to climb. Oh my god, even the user interface is a problem in this game. It works only sometimes. For example, if you're standing next to 2 or more interactable objects, the UI comes up and basically asks you which object you want to interact with. That's cool, I like that. But if there's only one object, there's no UI indicating anything. Nothing comes up. So you can totally miss that one, and some of these objects look like they just belong in the background. There's not much more I can say about this game. It's mainly fighting and running you do for the most part. One thing that surprised me was the underwater realm wasn't that bad, you know. In most games the underwater levels are pretty bad. In this one it was actually very good. But as I said, it slowed the story a lot, so yeah. Overall, the best thing about this game is the story and the characters. I think they carry the whole game through. The visuals, as I said, are pretty good for an early PS2 game. Well, wait, when did the PS2 came out? 4th of March 2000? Oh, so it's not that early of a PS2 game. Anyways, the visuals are really good. If you can put up with the gameplay, which is most of the times sluggish and stiff and can get pretty repetitive at times, you might enjoy this game very much. But if you like more polished games that are fast-paced and action-heavy, I can't really recommend you this game. But if you like good storylines and fantasy worlds and stuff, I can definitely see you going through this one at least once, or watching all the cutscenes on YouTube.
Side note.
So, earlier I said, it's mainly fighting and running you do for the most part. It's funny because I'm a big Dynasty Warriors fan, and Dynasty Warriors is basically just fighting a horde of enemies. There's not much variation in it, but it's fun. The combos are very fun, and this game is just not fun. I've played it 4 times actually, and yeah, it's just not that fun. Another thing, Devil May Cry came out in 2001. Primal was in the making for 3 years and it came out in 2003. Why didn't they just copy DMC? Why did they copy Tomb Raider? I don't get it. The story has something more in common with DMC, so, and if they were to make a sequel, I would love it for them to put something more fast-paced and probably just copy Devil May Cry or God of War, because I think if it had the gameplay of DMC or God of War, it would be way more fun, and the story is really good already, so that would just escalate things. This could be a really good jam. If you like the video, like it, subscribe, whatever you want to do. See you in the next one. Peace.